Welcome to The Things I Wish I Knew, the official YouTube channel and podcast. What are the things you wish you knew? Let's learn together, one life lesson at a time. Welcome back to the Things I Wish I Knew podcast. I'm excited to get started on season 2, episode 1 with you. And for those of you who don't know, or perhaps you were listening to the podcast from season 1 and wondering what happened to the podcast, I want to let you know that each season will only be 7 episodes. So you have now entered season 2, episode 1. For those of you who are wondering, I wanted to do 7 episodes per season simply because I feel like we're in a time where we get so much information that it's hard for us to really take in the things that we're learning, particularly when it comes to life lessons or anything that is motivational. So I hope you can add a podcast to your playlist the same way you would add your favorite song. In this episode, season 2, episode 1, I will be speaking with Caroline Mitchell, the author of the Dragon Path Oracle cards. Caroline has been working with Dragon Energy since 2005. She's also a 4th generation intuitive, psychic, and tarot reader, and she's been in the mind, body, and spirit field for the last 20 years. If you would like to know more about Caroline Mitchell, you can go to thethingsiwishiKnew.com, where I gave you a little bit more information about Caroline, her bio, and also links to her website. You can also purchase the Oracle Path Dragon cards via The Things I Wish I Knew, or go directly to Caroline's website where you can find out more information about the Oracle cards as well as about her amazing workshops. Thank you for listening, and I'm excited to get started. 2 friends. So
perfect.
I see you launched an amazing tarot deck, which is interesting because that week I was thinking about dragons. And so when she emailed me about your tarot deck, I was like, can you send it to me? I have tarot decks here, but I was like, I need to see this tarot deck. And so I was really excited, and it debuted October 13th.
It is.
That was the day. And so I just wanted to know, first, I want to know what inspired you about, what led you to creating this amazing tarot deck?
It's actually an oracle.
Yeah, so exactly, sorry.
Yeah, there's a big difference between oracle and tarot. That's been quite a journey actually, and how the deck came around. It's that actually came about during my Reiki 1 attunement, and this sort of big gaggle of dragons had appeared during my Reiki 1, and they basically had a download. That's the long and the short of it. I was in the last attunement took place in 100 Acre Woods in Fareham in Hampshire in the UK, and there's 2 tiny narrow little rivulets crossing. So they created like the 4 directions really. And I stood on I was sat or stood in one of the 4 corners or one of the quarters.
Yeah.
I could hear this noise overhead, and I thought, what on earth is that? And I sort of clairvoyantly looked up. I could just see the silhouette of this huge flock of something flying overhead. I initially thought were birds. I thought, no, that's not birds, that's dragons. Mm-hmm. And as soon as I'd sort of had that, oh, that's what they are, I had this entire download of my life's work with the dragons. It was quite surreal.
So exactly, for someone listening, what is a download? Like, what does that mean?
It's like a rush of information.
Okay.
That just suddenly comes into your consciousness. I see it like binary, so it comes down in like lines, like binary.
Okay.
So that's what it was to me. It's this enormous download. That was the first of quite a few, and it gave me my entire life's work, which was the Oracle deck that you've now got hold of, which was this was 15 years ago.
Yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I just wanted to say really quickly so you could explain the difference to the listeners. What's the difference between an Oracle deck and a tarot deck? I know I called it a tarot deck, but it is an Oracle deck. Just so people can understand, because there is that confusion, I think, with people online consuming different information. So maybe you could share with that. Okay,
so a tarot deck is 78 cards. They're split into four suits is the minor part of the deck, and they consist of 14 to a suit. You've got, depending on what deck you're using, they ultimately have swords, wands, cups, and coins. And there's 14 to a deck, so 1 to 10 like they are in the normal playing cards, and you've got the 4 court cards. On top of that, you have the 22 major arcanas. Now, the tarot is very much about life, and it'll and the four suits encompass all aspects of our physical reality. And then the majors, so the naught from the 4 through to the world at 21, are, I suppose, like large events. Some people call it fate, some people call it spiritual intervention, but they're the sort of the larger events that take place in our life. and they all sort of meld together to tell a story.
Okay.
Whenever I'm doing a tarot, they very much tell a story. So the cards that the client picks, or the querent picks, very much tell a story of their life. Whereas the oracle decks generally are used for sort of between 1 and 3 card readings, whereas a tarot deck can have, sort of 20 odd cards if you choose to. Makes for a very long reading.
3 hours.
But an oracle will quite often be, what's my card for card for today? What do I need to know today? What's my message from, in my case, the dragons or angels or mermaids or fairies or power animals or whatever? What do I need to know about today? Or they also, what do I need to understand today? What do I need to learn about me today? So often oracle cards reading will be 2 or 3 cards about what's going on for you now, very much in the present. Whereas people often see the tarot, and this doesn't always hold true, not from my perspective, as being predictive. And I don't like to read the tarot as being predictive personally. For me, they are a series of possibilities that are open up for you if you continue on the journey that you're on now.
Absolutely.
But the tarot is seen as being predictive, which I think is a bit unfair on the tarot, because that then sets people up for all kinds of expectations that actually aren't always achievable or able to meet.
Yeah, and do you think that creates a misconception? I'm going to go back about tarot. And people think that because it said this, therefore I should be making my decisions based on this. Do people need to understand that they still have a certain amount of free will, exactly, into how things play out, or they can change what the tarot cards say, let's say?
Completely, because what the tarot does, and certainly this is the way that I've used the tarot for the last 20, I've been reading cards for, 20, I started off reading playing cards, so I've been reading cards for about 30 years.
Wow.
And I went into tarot. I finally got a tarot deck probably about 25 years ago. But yeah, with the tarot, what it does, certainly from the way that I read, is that the tarot will pick up on what's been going on for you now, and where you see yourself going. Now, what it may do is throw up options for you. If you continue on this road, this is one likely outcome, or it could go this particular way. But at any point, what I say to all my clients, you make 1,000 choices in a day. Which route am I going to drive to work? What are we going to have for tea tonight? Shoes am I going to wear? And we make all these unconscious choices throughout the day. And so what the cards are picking up on is that where you are at that moment with the choices that you've been making in the background. So if at any point you don't like something or you want to change something, you make a different choice. You make a different conscious choice about what you want. It doesn't have to be the way it's laid out in the cards.
Do you find that people have somehow taken on the belief that the cards are the truth, or it's as it's laid out, because maybe the way it's presented in movies or certain aspects of, I would say it's become an industry for some people. They've created an idea that this is basically predictive, and when you see tarot readers, they basically know all, or like, where do you think that's coming from, right? Because there are people who see their tarot card readers like 5 times a month, thinking like, well, my tarot, I know friends who literally go so often, and I've told them, even with clairvoyance, I'm like, go once a year. It's not meant to be literally the Bible of your life, right? So what do you think that is, that it's kind of, or is it just anxiety? Like, where does that come from, this belief?
it's probably a number of different things. It's a great, people don't trust their own judgment. They don't trust. There's two things that come to mind with that. One is people don't trust their own judgment. And two, well, three things really. They want somebody else to tell them what to do. Or they're looking for somebody to validate what they're already thinking and believing.
Right.
And, you know, whether that's like a conscious collective thought process, or whether that's come through movies or something like that, which I don't think it probably hasn't come through the movies and things. That people, the tarot readers are often personified as this all-knowing with font of wisdom. Oh, if only we were.
Call them on speed dial, you know, every decision you make. There are people who literally, that's how they see their tarot reader. So
no. And actually, do you know what? It's really not healthy. All my clients, if I do very little tarot these days, basically I don't have a lot of time, but I see clients twice a year maximum.
Yes.
You know, at the most, they say, oh, can I come back? Yes, give me a ring in 6 to 8 months time. Because you cannot use it as a crutch to live your life by.
Absolutely.
It's not healthy, and it's very it's very disempowering for the individual. Is my belief on that. You know, the point of a tarot reader is to empower the person that you're reading for and give them options, hope, or depending on what their situation is, or you know, possible outcomes, and along the winding journey of life. So what you know, it's about empowering people, not disempowering people.
Yeah. Okay. So this leads me to the oracle cards, and so oracle cards, and you'll probably explain it better, about spirit guides, healers, and so people can have spirit guides through the oracle decks, or some people don't necessarily need to use a deck per se, that guide them throughout life. And so do you think oracle cards for people who need daily guidance are a little bit more effective than tarot?
Yes, frequently they can be. The dragons in particular are a bit kick-ass. A lot of the oracle decks are incredibly, in many ways, incredibly light, and I'm going to use the word fluffy. And my husband calls it stroking feathers. Oh, they're there. So it's going to be all right.
Yeah.
Whereas the dragons are a bit more, you want change, be that change, take action. You can't expect somebody to do it for you. They're incredibly forthright and very, very blunt. Probably a bit like me, really. That's probably why I work with Dragon, because I do tend to be a bit direct. So I had when I released my indie deck, because I actually originally self-published these in 2017.
Oh.
I published them. They were released at Yule, and somebody had bought them around Yule. And I was working at the hen shop in Avebury over the summer solstice, and I was doing readings. And a lady came in to see me, and she said, I absolutely love your dragon deck. It has been my lifesaver through the last 6 months. It saved my sanity, amongst many other things. And she was actually, because she was in a bit of a pit and a really not a good space. And so she would pull a card maybe every other day or every day, depending on what she felt at that time. And it really got her through from sort of Christmas to the summer solstice. So it's about empowering people to go on and take those next steps that they need to take.
Yeah. So for those who don't know about your cards yet, you talk about 4 dragon clans. And so I know the little booklet that I have here, I don't know all your story. Tell me about the first dragon that you met within, like, a clan that just really stood out to you the most, and how that dragon transformed you. And also, how can people who would like to have the same experience as you are, in terms of seeing, because do you see them, or is it that you feel their energy? Like, how do we explain that to people? Because in the book you say it's unquantifiable. And so how, right? Because it really is. It's kind of like that feeling where people say, I feel this being, I feel so connected to something, and it moves them to make these great decisions in their life. So how can, the first question, your first dragon that really moved you, and like, how did this manifest?
Okay. Right.
I know, because
Let's
we're explaining the unquantifiable, but I feel like it's worth talking about.
Okay, so when the dragons first came in, I honestly can't remember who the first dragon was. Because when I first started channeling them, because every individual dragon was channeled, so I'd just sit with them and then write with whatever I felt. Because I'm not particularly clairvoyant, so I'm much more claircognizant. So I have clear knowing, and so I get a feeling, or I'll get like words will come into my head. Even though I'm not very clairaudient, it's really difficult to explain. Claircognizant is very difficult to explain because there's like a complete combination of clairaudient, clairvoyant, and clairsentient, really. So suddenly you get this entire whole thing framed within your being. So it's a combination of all the clairs. Is probably the easiest way to explain it. And I've just felt that I just needed to sit down and actually connect into these beings, which is after my Reiki 1. And so I started sort of tuning into each one. Initially it would be sort of meditation, and then eventually that over a period of time that just actually went from meditation to literally straightforward channeled writing. And I wound up with about 40, possibly 46 or 47 dragons.
So many.
And the one that really sticks in my mind, actually, I'll just show you. The one that really, really sticks in my mind, because I had to go and Google it, was Aesculapius.
Oh,
or Asclepius, depending on how you say it.
I kept trying to, I'm like, how do you pronounce this? But now I know.
Yes, it's Asclepius. But I say Aesculapius. I'm probably wrong, but that's how I say it. And this enormous energy came forward, and his opening words were, "Your cordicus is wrong."
Oh, what does that mean?
I went, "Really?" He said, "Yes." He said, "Your cordicus is wrong. It needs correcting." Anyway, we then went on to have a conversation, and it's like, and who are you, or whatever. And he said who he was, and he's actually a demigod. So so Aesculapius is actually, I think he's Greek, and he's half god and half human. I can't remember which parent was which, but he was a healer of great repute, and he predated Hippocrates, I believe. I think he's connected to done the bloodline somewhere to Hippocrates, but anyway, he predates Hippocrates, and that is Aesculapius. And he insisted when we did the cordicus, he insisted it was in the card, it would only have one snake on it.
Oh,
the cordicus only has one snake, not two. And so often in certainly the Western world, I don't know about the Eastern world, but in the Western world, we have a staff with two snakes, and it's actually incorrect. So I went off to Google this Aesculapius that I couldn't spell or pronounce, and everything he told me was dead right. And he's actually one of the he's one of the guardians out in the deck, which has only come through much more recently, and because he's got a counterpart. But I had to go off and Google him, and he works very much with, and he works very much with plant life, physical. So it's more on the physical healing. Wow. So he's herbs. He'll do crystals, butterfly remedies, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, anything that's plant based, he'll work with. He's not adverse to working with vets and doctors either.
Oh, so do you feel that he came to you because you needed healing at the time yourself, or he wanted to use you as a vehicle to help others?
He's very much a vehicle to help others. Yeah. So he was just one of the dragons that came in as a part of the rest of the tribe.
And that's the one that stood out the most.
Yeah, he's the one that stood out because I had to, because it's such an unusual name. And I actually had to go and research him because the information he was giving me was so sort of precise. It was like, I need to Google this one.
Like, who is this? So
thank you, Dr. Google.
It's amazing because the fact that you were able to experience this and then find, like, via Google or like an online search engine, actual information about him. So why do you think there are websites like this? Do you think other people are having the same experience as you and they're putting the information up there? So when, say, you're searching for it, it's like, oh, what I experience, it's true, or this is what that means, or like people are creating websites where they're sharing information for people.
Actually, from Aesculapius, this was actually part of his Greek mythology.
Okay.
So it's on I guess it's on a page. It was so long ago now. It was on a page about Greek mythology, I expect.
So do we think it's not myth anymore? Because I feel like if you are experiencing it, I'm wondering if now the fact that it is available, it is about Greek mythology, but the fact that you're experiencing it, could it be that other people are also experiencing his presence as well? And so that is this validation of, oh, this is what you saw. And if you've never heard of him before, that's pretty amazing. It maybe kind of makes you believe, or there's some level of belief that it's not necessarily just fiction.
Yeah, quite likely. For me, it was complete validation that I wasn't going mad.
Exactly, right? Because I know for me, I've had weird dreams and then I have a strange word and I've looked it up and I'm like, that's an actual word and it's about something that's mystical or about this, something very spiritual. And so I feel like when you have those experiences, and I think it was great for you as well, and maybe other people who are having the same experiences as you, that, wow, this isn't just fiction. Like, where would
we're not going around the twist, but that's the beauty of it, isn't it? So often we have those synchronistic events. We'll feel something or hear something or experience something, and then we'll talk to somebody else that's maybe especially on a spiritual level, and they've got the same thing going on. It's like, oh, thank goodness, there's obviously something happening that we collectively we need to know about.
And just to lead into that, you had this experience, did you tell a lot of people, or did you just tell your friends who are spiritually open? Because I know when I talk about certain things, people are like, oh, okay, like, because it's scary, right? I mean, we are taught to think very linear when we're young, we're taught to think a certain way, and this is true, this isn't true. So when you have experiences that don't fit within the norm, like, who did you talk to about this?
I've never fitted in the norm. I'm very grateful for. So I grew up with a father that can see spirit and I see ghosties, as he calls them. So I think my entire network was spiritual. I was a little bit careful who I spoke to about it. And when they said to me they wanted the dragons wanted workshops creating, I had a database of about 500 people at the time. On email, and so I just put an email out saying that I'm running this workshop. So I'd spoken to a few people about it, and so I'm running this workshop, Dragons of Atlantis, blah blah blah. If you fancy joining me, and it sold out in 24 hours. That was in 2007 or 2009, something like 2007, I think. Okay. So that was pretty impressive. So people were definitely interested in it.
Yeah. And so just one thing I wanted to ask you. So do you think people think because you have this experience with dragons that they think you don't believe in anything? Because another, I think, misconception is that people who maybe have oracle decks or tarot decks or crystals or Reiki or any form of healing that is maybe not as we see conventional. In your case, you grew up in a household where there was openness to spirituality.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that idea of that, well, they don't believe in anything? Because that doesn't make sense. There's no way you can believe in nothing and experience something like that in energy, right?
I think it's everybody, my dad sees ghosties, but he says, well, how does that make any sense? So I think each person has their own take on life, crystals or whatever. I've got a couple of friends that one particular is when we first met, he didn't know anything about what I did, and I said to him, "You will come and talk to me when you're ready." No, I'm sorry. I don't do that stuff. It's complete mumbo jumbo. He's now got 2 decks. He's now got 3 decks. He's got an original deck signed, an original deck unopened, and one of the new decks. And they one deck lives in his car all the time.
Yeah.
So
the reason I'm asking that question is just because I think it's important to create openness and allow people to have space to practice spiritual ways of spirituality on their own, whether it's through spirit guides or maybe read the Bible, whatever it is that you do. And I think that that's one of the misconceptions within, they call it New Age, although it's not very new. It's been around for thousands of years. And so I always want to ask anybody who is considered New Age, kind of to get rid of that misconception that they believe in nothing, because that's always the idea of like, well, you don't believe in anything then because this is what maybe they've been taught growing up. And I understand that desire to hold on to something that maybe your family taught you to believe. But I think for somebody who's open to New Age, I say that in quotation, ways of practicing spirituality, I just think it's important to get rid of that idea that people who do this don't believe in anything. I don't want to say a particular word or all-knowing being, but that I think that's incorrect personally.
I think we'd be, if I say I don't believe in anything, for me, it's actually collective consciousness. It's universal energy. There is, and probably nature's actually. So I have an eclectic view of what the all-seeing, all-knowing energy is. It's not just one thing. For me, it's quite varied.
And I think that's amazing that people can have that and not just rely on one vehicle in order to experience them.
Everything has its place, and it depends on where you are and what fits for you and what's right for you. Whether that's, it doesn't matter what religion you follow, what path you follow. It's what's right for you at that time. Absolutely. And you need to follow that. And what you do is you're walking your truth. You're following your truth.
Yeah, and
there's nothing wrong with that.
And do it with pure love. I think if the foundation is love, I think that you're in the right place, right? So I was going to ask you, so what would, say I wanted to attend a workshop, I'm not sure if you still do them, but what would I experience? What would I expect if I were somebody who signed up for a workshop and I'm new, maybe I'm skeptical and I want to know what this is all about? Like, what would the experience be? Obviously the first time.
Okay. I don't teach beginners. Mm-hmm. Because the work that I do with the dragons is quite often deep healing work. People need to be energetically aware of their energy system. Mm-hmm. So they need to be able to meditate. Mm-hmm. They need to be able to ground. They need to know their chakra system. So most people know the seven main chakras. So that's fine. As long as they've got that and they've got some idea of meditation, I can take most people on. So then we do a meditation, depending on what we're doing. Mm-hmm. I quite often will take people through a 21 chakra system, because to work with dragon energy, you need to be really, really grounded. You've got to be so deeply rooted into the earth. And most people only pay lip service to being grounded. Absolutely. Me included.
I'm there. Yeah,
I've fallen foul of it. I'm thinking, yes, I'm grounded. Dragons showed me that I was so not grounded. And so I take people through that, and then we connect to dragon guides. It really depends. Every workshop that I do is different. I've got one coming up in a few weeks, which is a 4-week course of Dragons Beside You. And I take people
looking around. You said Dragons Beside You.
Oh, no, it's not Dragons. Is it Dragons Beside You? Hang on. Yes, it is. It is Dragons Beside You. Yes, it's called Dragons Beside You. So it's working with the dragons. Now that can be from the deck. It can be your own personal dragons. It could be one of the clans, because there's obviously the 4 clans in the deck. So it really, really varies. I do 1-to-1 dragon sessions, which is you and I with the dragons. A week's time, 2 weeks time, I'm actually doing a series of like 2-hour workshops, which is teaching people to connect with their dragon cards, on how to use them for themselves and for doing readings with other people. Because I also teach the tarot. Well, I used to teach the tarot. I don't have the time now. So what I'm doing is I'm teaching people how to use the deck, and how, when you've got, say you've pulled 4 cards, and you've got one from each clan, what's that all about? Or if you've got all from all the cards you pulled are all from one clan, and so what does the energy of that tell you, because the clan's influence is stronger through that, and so that's the sort of thing that I do.
Okay.
Oh, what else do I do? Or meditations with the dragons. I do meditations. So the dragons from the deck, or
people have to be prepared. So how do you know they're prepared first? How do you know they're not beginners? Because we all think we're grounded. I could say, oh, I know my chakras. There's always that person.
That's fine. No, if you know your chakras, that's absolutely fine. I can ground you. That's not a problem.
Are there people who have come to your workshops and you're like, you're not ready? Like, how do you approach that? So, and then also, if someone's watching this or listening, how can they prepare themselves in order to enter your workshop in the right space?
Ideally, it's know your chakras, have an ability to meditate to some degree or another. Doesn't matter if you can't. It doesn't matter if you can't. You're not clairvoyant. It doesn't matter if you're not clairaudient. None of those things matter. What matters is the fact that you know your chakra system, and you have some idea of your aura, and you have some idea about meditation. That's absolutely key. And at the moment, because I'm doing everything online, so that tends to be much more difficult to judge, actually, with being people booking online on where they are. I get a lot of emails saying, I'd like to do this workshop, and people ask me questions about it. Because when you're working in person, quite often people will, email or phone or text or do something. You can have a conversation with them, and you can judge whether or not they're ready. And you can just say, you're not quite ready for this yet. So it is the key is being able to meditate, and having some idea of grounding and knowing your chakras is really key.
That's great. I think that's great that you're giving people at least a little bit of a head start. So I was going to ask you, during times like this, in what ways are you using the dragons, or I shouldn't say working with the dragons, in order to perhaps, help other people who are seeking guidance from you through the dragons, or for your own life? Like, how are the dragons empowering you to get through times like this, to be so optimistic and positive from what I see? So.
Yeah, no, unbelievably, I have my days where I want to stay under the duvet and not come out. I'm very human, like everybody else.
It's very honest, because people assume that people who perhaps have your, I would say, gift, which is it's a beautiful gift to have, are always positive and happy, and they know everything, and the world just doesn't get on their nerves because they have spirit guides who are showing them the way. So, like, how do you get through things, and what are your emotions?
Generally, for me, I'm a victim of, the dragons are absolutely massive on walking your talk, authenticity, no BS, and total honesty or integrity. And I am one, if I'm not careful, I get completely in my head. And I'm aware that I'm getting in my head, and I know I'm getting in my head, but I can't do anything about it. I know what to do, but I just, I get to a point, it's like, I actually have to take time out, which is exactly what I did actually over the weekend. I actually had, I didn't go near my computer or my phone from Thursday night until this morning, because I had to just get into that space. So I had Friday I spent, because of a full moon here, or coming up to a full moon. So I spent Friday cleansing my crystals. I created a new grid in my dragon room downstairs, and then put them all out for the full moon to charge under the full moon. And that's how my Friday was spent. Or then meditating in the afternoon, or trying to. And I fell asleep because I was so dog tired. 3 times I tried to meditate Friday afternoon, and 3 times I fell asleep. So that was a real indicator to me that I needed some time out.
Yeah, I was going to say, but that's okay. I think you have to allow
totally.
Yeah, and I think
completely
pressure, with people who are maybe on meditation apps, which are great, that if they miss it, or if they're tired, and it's I think it's listening to your body and what's happening and resting. So
completely, just don't give yourself a hard time. You fell asleep. You needed the sleep more than meditation. It's fine.
Yeah. So, well, in Zen Buddhism, sleeping is a form of meditation, even walking meditation. So there are different practices of
Of
meditation for
course.
even beginners who can't sit still. I encourage them to do grounding, in their backyard and do a form of walking meditation to,
Totally.
to connect with, the leaves. Take no phone in your pocket, just you and the nature, meditating, breathing
Completely.
in and out, and just taking in everything that this beautiful planet has to offer. And so I think it's great that you are even sharing that you've had those moments where you need to unplug and disconnect, and you're not
Completely. A
continuously.
human, we're human. We're not, if we weren't human, we wouldn't be here on earth. We weren't going through this experience. We're spiritual beings having a human
Experiences, absolutely.
experience. We all get cross about things. We all get irritated. you
Absolutely.
know
Yeah.
so that's how I spent Friday. Saturday I was on a workshop, which was Samhain on Saturday, and so I spent Saturday morning on a workshop working with the energies of Ceridwen, who is the crone of the Celtic year. And one thing I'm starting to do is, dragons have been on at me for a long time to walk the Celtic year, and it starts at Samhain, just because we're in the new year now with Samhain having been over the weekend.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's an opportunity to be on a workshop with Ceridwen, the goddess Ceridwen.
Mm-hmm.
So I did that Saturday morning, and it was blowing a hoolie and lashing heavens hard with rain. And then by some miracle, the skies cleared at lunchtime, because I was going to probably one of the highest points in Hampshire to walk the labyrinth. Because and the other thing I need to do as a part of the work that I'm doing with the dragons over the coming 12 months is to honour each of the 8 festivals, and also walk the labyrinth. So they've got something to teach me. I have no idea what this is at the moment, but I will find out as the year progresses.
Mm-hmm.
And the skies cleared, and they said to me, you will either walk the labyrinth at sunset or sunrise, or every festival. And I was with a girlfriend, and we finished the labyrinth, and I looked around, I looked at my watch, looked at the sun. I said, do you realise we've just walked the labyrinth almost at sunset, which is what I was told we would do. It's like, that's a bit cool. So it's about inner guidance. I think it's just following that inner guidance, those feelings that you have. And that's how the dragons communicate with me. It's that sort of knowing those feelings, there's those nudges to do something. And it's always works.
So do you think there's a difference? I write a lot about this on the Things I Wish I Knew. People will say gut instincts. People will say intuition. So what is the difference for people who, because as we know, your gut health is important. Your gut you feel it in your gut sometimes when something is off, when something is right. Like all our feelings are connected to our stomach. And so I've had arguments with people who are like, well, your instincts are different than your gut, like your gut feeling. And so they don't understand the difference. And so for you, like, how would you explain the difference between, as you were telling me the story now, was it an instinctual feeling or a gut feeling, or just like a feeling that's just in the air somewhere?
It's just for me, it's a knowing. For me, gut instinct is probably, it's generally gut instinct comes in when there's some kind of danger afoot, or there's some kind of something unpleasant around. His gut instinct comes in because it hits you in the solar plexus, so it's your body telling you something is unsafe, so it normally sets off your adrenaline or something like that. So it's a gut. For me, the gut is about normally a point of being something is unsafe around you.
Okay. And so do you feel that your gut can help you make decisions?
No, I don't work in that way.
Okay. Yeah.
Mine's much more that knowing, that claircognizant, that clear knowing.
And so how can people get to that point of that all-knowing feeling? I just know it's right. It's not logical.
Try it and find out.
Well,
honestly, that's what the dragons have taught me over the last 15 or so years. That is what the dragons have taught me. Probably past 15 years. I've had arguments with them about stuff, because as I said, I quite, most of my stuff I channel, so I write it. Mm-hmm. And I'll be getting this list. I'll be going, oh God, is this ego? Is this my mind playing tricks on me? Is this what I think it should be? Then I try it and find out.
I like that, because we often rationalize things. We are always getting to that. It has to make sense. And this amazing, I'm not going to say his name on the podcast, but I've seen his talks, and he said the reasons why don't matter. Sometimes just do the thing. And I think that's important when you have that all-knowing feeling, to try it rather than to write a list down as to why perhaps this is a bad idea or it doesn't feel right. If it's really just there floating in the air and you feel compelled to do it, you need to try it and see what happens.
Completely. You completely try it. And the thing is, what the dragons have taught me, whether it goes completely pear-shaped or goes fantastically well, do you know what? It actually doesn't matter. What matters is that you've experienced something and you've learned something.
Absolutely.
And that's the absolute key with any of this work. It doesn't matter whether you're talking dragons, you're talking angels, you're talking spirit guides, whatever. It's you've experienced something.
And do you think that's where the growth happens, through the experience?
Totally. Because you then start to learn what's my mind, what's my true intuition, what's, you start, but you also learn to trust your judgment, because what it does, it also teaches you the lesson of discernment. And this year I didn't run. There's a workshop I run every year at Inbulk in Avebury, it's a dragon from the deck, for the Dragon Path Oracle, and she's called the Avebury Matriarch. And I run a full day healing workshop with her every year. And I'll just find a picture of her. And for the first time in probably 3 years, I've not worked with her. I've got at Avebury, and that's the Avebury Matriarch. And I really got the distinct impression, that's the Avebury Henge, by the way. I really got the distinct impression she didn't want it held. I thought, I wonder why that is. I thought, well, no, she doesn't want it. We're not doing it this year. You'll do it online, but you won't do it in bulk. Okay, it won't happen then. And of course, then we had COVID.
Oh.
And I thought, well, there we are. That's why she didn't want it run this year. And it's just about trusting, because the dragons are big on getting you to learn to trust yourself. That's what they want from us, is to trust our judgment, trust our instincts, trust our knowing, and actually believe in ourselves. Yes. They're very much about, they are so much about empowerment. We give our power away far too easily. We bow down because somebody said something quite authoritatively, or not authoritatively. They question us. Therefore, we immediately think, or frequently we think, we're wrong. Then we start second guessing ourselves.
Exactly.
The dragons are really big on, stand up for what you believe in. Do it your way. Absolutely. It doesn't matter about anybody else. And they really encourage us to stand up and do what we want to do and walk the path we want to walk. But also be brave enough, if we have made a bad choice,
to accept it.
Okay, so we learn from that. We pick ourselves up, dust ourselves off. Okay, not doing that again. Or at least ways, not in that way. And off we go again. Because nothing we learn is ever, ever, ever wasted.
Exactly. And we can change directions. And I think that is the important part in every lesson, and even if it's something great that's happening, you can decide, I don't want to live my life this way, and change directions. And I think allowing, that all-knowing feeling to say it's okay, or just to go with it, is a beautiful thing. And I think a lot of us feel stuck, that we have to stay the course, even if we need to change directions, right? And
it's like,
this idea of commitment, whereas sometimes letting go is a commitment to self. And I think that I love the fact that more people are embracing oracle decks, because I think that they really speak to trusting that process more than ever. And I think tarot has a great place in that, but I do think that oracle decks allow you to steer the ship a little bit more, versus just saying this is as is. This is what the cards say, whereas oracle decks are like, no, today you need to get up and do whatever that particular deck is guiding you towards, and then you can use your all-knowing feeling and make good decisions that way.
Absolutely. And certainly with this particular oracle deck, the dragons very much sort of encourage you to meditate with them. So if you know what they say is, if you pull a card and if you're not quite sure, you know, what the message means for you, is stick it on the fridge with a magnet and stick it up there for a couple of days and sort of see what happens for you. Or put, if you've got an altar, put it on your altar and just sit with that dragon, meditate with that dragon. You know, there's so many ways that you can work with this particular deck, and the only limit actually is your own imagination on your own, because the dragons are, you know, use your imagination, follow that through, be creative.
Mm-hmm. So you said that you offer a workshop where you teach people how to use this particular deck, this dragon deck. So if somebody would like to learn how to use the deck that I have, I know I just got it. How can they sign up for the workshop, or exactly what's the workshop like? Is it like a classroom where it's like we go through each card one by one, or do you just pull a card and then through that process show people how to connect, and perhaps maybe you show them what messages you're getting from it?
Okay, so what I tend, do you know what, I never script, I rarely script any of those particular workshops. I literally go with whatever comes in on the day. But as an idea is, we'll talk about the clans, because a bit like the suit cards and the tarot, they have an impact on the reading. So we'll talk about the energy of the clans. We'll talk about, I'll get each person, we'll probably just start with a meditation just to get them into that mindset, to settle them down and get that grounding and that connection going. We'll maybe talk about the clans, talk about the deck as a general, a bit like we have now. And then what I ask people to do is to maybe pull a card out the deck. So you need to have your deck with you, and pull a card out of the deck, and then just sort of write down what your feelings are about that. Now it could be to do with the color, it could be to do with the shape, it could be to do with something along those lines. And by the end of it, we start off with them pulling a card for themselves and getting familiar and comfortable with using the book. And by the end of it, the aim is that they have they're then split into pairs, and they're reading for each other. So it's all on Zoom. So we split into Zoom rooms, and they're using their intuition. And if they get stuck, they've got the book there as a backup to help them understand the deeper message if they need to. Mm-hmm. So it's all very, very fluid. But the idea is that they connect to the card and to the dragons and understand the concept of that, and that the book is there for them if they'd like to use it. But I did it a few months ago, and everybody was blown away by what they were getting and how much sense it made to the person they were reading for and all that kind of stuff. So it's a good day. Or it's about 2.5 hours, I think.
So you must be connecting with people around the world, because now that you're more online with Zoom, people all over the world, including Canada, can actually access your workshops, which is great.
Absolutely. Yeah, Canada, New Zealand, Singapore, Australia, the States. Where else are we? Where else have we gone? Oh, all of Europe, obviously, the UK. So yeah, I'm completely global. And the time zones, I think there's about 5 workshops that are available at different time zones and different dates, just to accommodate the various time zones around the world. Some are at 7 o'clock in the evening and some are at 9 o'clock in the morning, and everything in between, to just try and accommodate some of those time zones.
I love it. So I was going to ask you, so we're called The Things I Wish I Knew. And so I always ask people, what are the things you wish you knew? And I'm going to say 5 years ago that you know now. And what would you tell yourself back then in terms of...
What would I... What do I wish I knew? Mm-hmm. Do you know, I don't think there's anything, because the thing is...
It's amazing.
I do know. So I get very few surprises. No, there's nothing that I wish I'd known 5 years ago that I knew now. Mm-hmm. It's the dragons told me a long time ago how it would pan out, and it did. I knew in 2013 what would be happening when we moved into this house. When I saw this house, that one on the market, and we bought it. And it's all gone junk, exactly as I knew it would. So there's nothing, I don't think there's anything that I would, there's nothing, oh God, I wish I'd known that years ago. Mm-hmm. because it's, I guess, because the dragons have taught me over all these years to follow the feeling and to trust it and try it. I haven't got anything that I wish I'd known.
So no regrets. Do you find it's because you're living in the moment more so than anything?
I wish I was living in the moment more. Probably that'd be my only regret. I don't live in the moment more. Yes, I think because I try and be present.
Okay.
And that is my overriding.
You're the first person that I've asked that question who has said there's nothing. And most people are like, oh, I wish I knew that, and you're just like, no. And I think that's a beautiful feeling. I think that's very freeing. And I think, do you think that perhaps using the Oracle Dragon decks, this is just an example, that could help people have that experience maybe 5 years from now and say, well, yeah, there's nothing that I wish I knew because I was really present and I allowed myself to experience everything as is and move on with the wisdom and keep moving.
Yeah, absolutely. And the dragons talk so much about being present, being mindful. There is only now, all of that kind of stuff. And they try all their messages. A lot of all the dragons talk about it, but many of the messages are stay present, be now. For that, there is only this moment in time. And so that's where I think that's probably pretty. Yeah, if people use the deck, I think they'll find life quite freeing.
That's amazing. Well, thank you. Thank you for giving me your time today.
Oh, thank you.
I enjoyed speaking with you. Thank you for listening to the Things I Wish I Knew podcast. If you like this podcast, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe for your weekly life lessons. If you'd like to read more life lessons or more on this life lesson today, please go to thethingsiwishiknew.com.